Look at modern Christian leadership from the outside, and you'll often see a highly polished machine. Success is tallied in spreadsheets. Congregations are measured by attendance statistics, media reach, and the sheer volume of organized activity. But when spiritual power is absent, the machine has to run on something else. Often it defaults to psychological manipulation, like a carefully timed chord on a massive pipe organ playing softly at the end of a service to push a crowd toward an emotional response. Behind the scenes, the people running these systems are frequently exhausted. They suffer from what Poonen calls the Martha syndrome, sweating away in the kitchen of ministry, endlessly anxious and completely overwhelmed by the sheer scale of human need. All of that frantic outward motion, stripped of actual inward reality, leaves a leader with a grueling, spiritually hollow day-to-day existence. Trying to serve God through sheer human willpower feels like cranking a rusted hand pump. You push and pull with all your strength, and the reward is a sputtering, unreliable trickle. Yet the promise found in the Gospels is entirely different. It describes rivers of living water flowing outward effortlessly from within a person, never running dry. Zac Poonen found a pivot point for this problem in the first verse of Revelation chapter 4. There, John hears a command that reframes the entire vantage point: come up higher. The answer to spiritual burnout isn't finding a way to work harder or optimize your schedule. It involves stepping away from a low, earthly perspective to see the work from a heavenly one. In God's sequence, work starts with rest. Adam was created on the sixth day, meaning his very first full day of existence was spent in quiet fellowship with his Creator before he ever stepped foot in the garden to labor. You see the same pattern with Jesus. He waited in heaven for 4,000 years while the earth suffered. Even after arriving, he spent 30 quiet years making stools and benches in a local shop. He was never pressurized into premature action simply because a desperate need existed. A true servant moves exclusively when the Father speaks. This diagram outlines the friction between human impulse and divine order. A circular path shows how reacting to need creates a feedback loop of exhaustion. The upward path suggests that hearing a specific command is the only thing that produces lasting weight. Following that path of obedience, Jesus finished his work in just 3.5 years, accomplishing more than frantic, self-directed labor could manage in 3,000. But to actually hear that guiding voice, a leader has to drop all religious pretense. The religious leaders of the first century possessed encyclopedic scriptural knowledge and public respect. Yet they were completely deaf to God because they were wearing a mask of piety. Zac Poonen hit a crisis of reality early in his own life. Despite holding prestige as a naval officer and maintaining a spotless public facade, he realized that his private thought life and his attitude toward money were entirely misaligned with the holy messages he preached. He had to admit that disconnect, and he learned that the first requirement for serving God is never instant perfection. It is absolute, unvarnished honesty about what is actually happening inside your own mind. The exact moment a leader stops trying to impress an audience and admits their own emptiness to God, genuine spiritual reality begins. That reality is easily lost when the church imports worldly efficiency to speed things up. Back in the Old Testament, King David tried to move the Ark of the Covenant using a Philistine bullock cart because it seemed faster than carrying it on human shoulders. The result was immediate disaster. A similar collapse happens today when ministries swap out the Holy Spirit for corporate business models, treating financial capital as their primary engine instead of divine direction. A healthy system relies on cooperative, humble parts. Think of a raw potato as an unbeliever. The hand, representing the evangelist, reaches out to pick it up, but the hand can't digest it. It has to pass that potato down to the stomach, the teachers and prophets, where it is broken down and assimilated into the body. But when those parts become jealous, they stop cooperating. The hand tries to build its own kingdom, and the stomach tries to build another. You no longer have a living body. You just have an anatomy laboratory full of disconnected parts. Competing egos and worldly metrics only produce a dead organization. It takes deep humility to recognize that you are just one small, imbalanced piece of a larger living organism. To maintain that humility, a specific kind of leader is required. A person who rejects flashy titles, refuses inflated salaries, and abandons the desire to be elevated as a superior. If you want to communicate with a crawling ant, you have to descend to its level. In the same way, Jesus emptied himself of heavenly privilege to become an ordinary man, proving that effective ministry requires stepping down to sit exactly where the people sit. Choosing this downward path comes with an immediate cost. You will likely lose your popularity, face rejection from established institutions, and be labeled a heretic. But for a leader who has abandoned their ambition, these attacks lose their damage. Because the goal isn't to build a personal image. Every rejection, whether accidental or deliberate, is filtered into a process of refinement. When there is no self-glory left to protect, no human being or circumstance can actually touch the core of the work. The ultimate objective of a Christian worker is never to construct a massive earthly empire. The goal is to fall into the ground and die to self-interest, allowing the pure, unhindered life of Christ to break through the soil.